It says Fundamentals of ESL Tutoring. Can everybody see that? Perfect. Thank you. So here's what we're going to talk about today. First, I want to talk a little bit about my organization, the Delaware County Literacy Council. We are based in the Philadelphia area. I know some of you might not be in that area, but that's totally okay. The second thing we're going to talk about is the state of adult education and who our ESL learners are in the Philadelphia metropolitan area. The third thing, we're going to go over student-centered learning. So as instructors, we should always be mindful about how to create a student-centered learning environment. So because some of us might be doing this tutoring through Zoom in the near future, we might want to talk about what that looks like. The next thing is we're going to write mission statements today. And this really is not a lengthy mission statement, just a paragraph long. And the main reason why we're going to do that is so that we can practice turning in assignments in Google Classroom, because the bulk of the training is actually going to be done through Google Classroom. And it's wonderful because it's self-paced. You get to do it on your own time. You can go as quickly or as slowly as you want, depending on how familiar you are with the materials. So first, I want to just tell you guys a little bit about myself. I've been teaching English as a second language for about 8 years now. I've predominantly taught in university settings to international students. I've taught writing classes in universities, and I have my master's in education focused in teaching English as a second language. I also have some experience working in the Philadelphia School District as a research person in ESL, and I've just recently been working more in the community side. So that's what my organization does. It really helps out adult learners in the community who aren't enrolled in traditional adult classes like college programs. For today, I have two main objectives for you. The first one is for you to be able to identify strategies to make your instruction or your tutoring more student-centered as opposed to teacher-centered. And we'll explain why that is important and what the distinctions are between a student-centered learning environment and a teacher-centered one. And then the second main one is for you to be able to navigate our Google Classroom. Because as I said, you'll be doing most of the learning via Google Classroom within the next 2 weeks. I will be monitoring your progress. I will be offering feedback. We will be doing it as a group, as a community, which is really nice because you get to see how other people are responding to some of the prompts in our Google Classroom. Okay. So right now, let's do a quick icebreaker with everybody. Just spend about a minute. Just tell us who you are, what your name is, where you're located. I know most of us are located in Philadelphia or around Philadelphia, but some of us aren't. And like I said, it's okay because some of you will be doing tutoring through Zoom. And also, if you just wanted to learn more about teaching ESL, this is a great opportunity to do it. And the last one is, if you could communicate with any animal, which animal would that be? All right, so I'm going to start, and then I'll just call on the people on my screen. So my name is Robert, and I am based in the Philadelphia area. And if I could communicate with any animals, that animal would be a dog, because I just recently got a new puppy, and I'm trying to tell my puppy how to play with my cat. He keeps jumping on my cat like this, and my cat really does not like it. So I feel really bad for my cat. So I would like to just tell my puppy, please just don't jump on my cat. Thank you. All right. So next person, Beth, you'll have to unmute yourself first. Beth, yes.
Did that work?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Beth. I'm in Southwest Philadelphia. And I would love to be able to hear my cat speak because I know how much she loves me and I could really use that language right about now. I tell her a lot, even though she's deaf, but I could use the feedback. So Sally, her name is.
Great. Mrs. Miller?
Actually, my name is Sutton, but it's very confusing. Hi. That's all right. I'm Eileen Sutton. I live in Drexel Hill. I already speak cat, I think, Beth, because I've been a great lover of cats. Here's one of them. She's going to help me with this. But I think if I could speak to one animal, it would probably be a horse. I have a lifelong love of horses. I still ride despite my doctor's assertion that I should not, and love them and just love to be around them. I love everything about them. They're almost as good as cats. Not quite, but almost.
Great. Daryl?
Hi, I'm Daryl Foreman. I live at 55th and Cedar. So I guess that's Southwest. I would be a humpback whale communicator.
Wow, that's a good one.
They're big and beautiful and deep in the ocean.
Great. Thank you. Sarah?
Hey, I'm Sarah. I'm located in Philadelphia, near Center City. And if I could hear what they're thinking as they're flying around.
I'm sorry, my internet connection just cut out for a little bit. Which animal did you say?
A bird or a pigeon.
Great. Thank you. Marianne?
I live in Springfield, Delaware County, and I would like to speak cat as well because my boy is so mad at me, won't let me brush him, and I keep trying to convince him that he needs it, but he's not listening. Anyway.
Great, thank you. Sadef?
Okay, I'm unmuted. So I'm Sadef. I'm actually from Michigan. And if I had to communicate with any animal, I don't personally have an animal, but I love my sister's cat. So probably I'd say cat.
Great, thank you. And Morgan?
Yes, hello, this is Morgan. I'm in Northern California. If I could communicate with any animal, I would have to say it would be an octopus. I love to scuba dive, and I highly recommend, if you've never seen an octopus in the wild with the way they shimmer and their colors, it's absolutely fascinating. And so I've always been fascinated by the octopus. So that would be my answer.
Wow. That's a very original answer. Thank you.
Robert, am I muted yet?
This
Guess not.
Who is this?
This is Beth. I guess you can hear me. I don't know how to mute myself again. Is Alt-A a toggle?
If you go to where your picture is, and then
Yeah, see, I don't have my pictures, the problem. I have your slide, your screen, the icebreaker slide.
Huh.
I'll fiddle.
Okay.
Everybody's still open mic'd, I think. Every time somebody says, I see their picture. Does that mean they're not muted? Oh, hang on.
And then we still have one more person, M. Lero. And you're muted. Lero. Wait, I see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Okay. Wait.
Okay. We hear a lot of feedback. Are you Marianne? Are you logged into both your computer and your phone?
I am, and I'm trying, hold on.
Okay. So Marianne, I'm going to mute you for now. You would have to just use either your phone or your computer, or if you move them away from each other, then we won't hear the feedback. Okay, so great. Let's see. All right, so next we're going to talk a little bit about my agency that I'm with, just to kind of give you guys an idea of who the learners are and who our staff members are, to put this all into a context. So we are the Delaware County Literacy Council. And first of all, what is literacy? What are we trying to do here? We follow the federal guidelines, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act of 2014, and their definition of literacy is for people to be able to read, write, and speak in English and compute and solve problems. But the most important part about that description or definition is that they should be able to do it so that they can function on the job, in the family, and in society, right? So oftentimes when we think about literacy, we just think about, oh, they should be able to read and write. But there is a purpose to that literacy, and that purpose is to be able to function more fully in society. And here's our mission. At DCLC, we strive to help everyone in our community read, write, speak, and understand English. And in order for us to do that, we use a lot of volunteers like you. We do have paid teachers, and we have teachers that teach classes, but unfortunately, not adults can attend those classes because they're usually during the daytime when adults might be working or they might be taking care of family members. So we need a lot of volunteers to help ensure that our programs are free and accessible to as many people as possible. This is a little bit about our history. In the background, you can see some of our learners who recently graduated with their high school equivalency diplomas. We were formed in 1975 by volunteers. It was just a collection of volunteers in the community who wanted to do something for everybody in their community. These are some of our important staff members that you might be in contact with. So the first one on the very left, that is Kate. She is our executive director. She kind of oversees the entire organization. Right in the middle right there, that is Karen. Karen is the tutor coordinator, and that's why her box is a little different, just because she is going to be your main point of contact. She communicates with all the tutors. So if you have any questions about, your learner, if you have questions about, when you should be meeting with the learner and how to get in contact with your learner, you can talk to Karen. She's a really nice person. Over here in the bottom left, that is Kevin. Kevin is kind of the person that's in the middle of our spoke. He is the person that's in the middle of our network. He can connect you with anybody. He knows what everybody is doing. So if you ever call our main office, you'll most likely get in contact with Kevin. Kevin also does student intake and testing. So if you ever go to a site where they're testing students, Kevin is the person in charge of that. Kim over here at the middle bottom, she is our student support person. If your learner ever needs help finding daycare options, or if they are struggling with attendance or anything like that, please contact Kim. The top right over here, that's Peter. He is a tutor who's been with us forever. So that's why I put him here in this slide right here. He is one of those tutors that have been with us so long that he's kind of just taken on like a full-time job by himself at the main headquarters. He fixes our doors, our windows. Whenever there's something, we can just call him Peter. Jen at the bottom right here is our main teacher. She's our lead teacher. She leads professional development for teachers. So she does like curriculum and stuff. Okay. So in our organization, we primarily serve 3 types of learners, and we have 3 types of programs. The first one is adult basic education. The second one is English as a second language. And then we also have another English as a second language class called IELCE, Civics and Language. And I'll talk a little bit about what that is. So in our adult basic education class, these are learners that are primarily from the United States that weren't able to get their high school diplomas. So they might be in our program so that they can find a better job or to get a high school diploma. Our ESL learners are primarily immigrants, and they might be in our programs to help their children with homework. And then in our IELCE program, they're also ESL learners, but in this program, there's a very specific pathway for them, and that is to become certified nursing assistants. So those are our 3 main programs. So what are we doing here? Why are we serving these populations? And why do we have these 3 programs? So these are some statistics from the country, the United States, about literacy and adult education. We know that 36 million adults in the United States have low literacy levels, and 68% of programs like ours are struggling to help them, right? We have long wait lists, and less than 10% of adults in need of these services are getting them, right? Again, that's less than 10%. Adult education is really poorly funded, unlike K-12 education. Low literacy costs the United States economically, and it's also cyclical, right? Children whose parents have low literacy levels have a 72% chance of being at the lowest literacy levels themselves. Okay, so 72%. I find this statistic just something. Again, 72% of children whose parents have low literacy levels end up staying in the lowest literacy levels. Okay. So how about ESL learners in the Philadelphia area? Who are our learners here? These are some of their characteristics. 30% of our ESL learners had little schooling, but again, 30% also had some college education, right? So we can't really pin them into, one type of demographic, because we do know that ESL learners are very diverse. They have diverse educational experiences. And these are some of their potential educational backgrounds. So for example, you might have an ESL learner whose native or home language education was limited or none, but you might also have people who graduated college, right? So they got their post-secondary degrees. So within those same groups of people, ESL learners who had little education might be able to speak advanced English, right? So my dad is a really good example. He did not receive a traditional education in his home country, but when he came to the United States, he worked in the restaurant business, serving as a cook and then a waiter. So he learned a lot of oral English that way. But my dad was never able to really learn how to read and write English that well. So even though he can speak English pretty well now, he has very limited English writing skills, right? But you also might have some people who had college degrees from their home countries, and they can't really speak English, but they might be able to read and write very well because they were able to learn how to read and write English in their home countries, but never had the chance to speak it. So this chart is just to kind of show you the variety of ESL learners that we might serve. And here's a quick snapshot of where they come from. This is a wheel of where our learners are from. So as you can see, it's super diverse. We have a lot of students from Haiti, a lot of students from Mexico, from Russia, from Sudan, from Venezuela, China, Ecuador, just to name a few. These are some of my learners in 2019, the winter of 2019. I had students from China, from Venezuela, from Morocco. They're very, very diverse. But there is one consistent trend, and I think that this might even be true throughout the country, especially in large cities, is that the immigrant population is really growing. So this is from Philadelphia, but I have an inkling that this is probably also true in a lot of major cities in the States and in Canada as well. Okay. So we're going to get to our next activity, which is getting to know your learner, to try to kind of get us to think about what it's like to be a language learner, to put ourselves in the shoes of our learners. And this is the link, and I'm actually going to put this link into the chat box. So, okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put you guys into breakout rooms to discuss this activity, and I'm going to show you exactly what that activity looks like. So basically, you're going to do a quick needs assessment. This is something that we do when we first meet our learners to understand what their language learning goals are. And it's also something that we are constantly doing with our learners. We're constantly assessing their needs. So there are 3 different scenarios. You're going to envision yourself as a language learner, right? Your first language is English, but in the first scenario, you're going to Turkey for a month-long vacation. So think about what your immediate language needs and goals might be. In the second scenario, you just got a new job with a healthcare company based in Turkey, but some of your colleagues don't understand English. So what do you need to learn in terms of being able to communicate in Turkish with your colleagues? And then in the last scenario, you're moving to Turkey with a child because you will be telecommuting with your company in the United States. You can continue speaking English with your colleagues. However, your child will be enrolled in a Turkish-speaking school. So I'm gonna randomly assign you guys into breakout rooms. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes, so please spend about 3 minutes per scenario and discuss them, and then we will reconvene afterwards. So the first thing to do is in your chat box, can you please open up this link? I see some people have gotten into the document already. In order to access your chat box, you might have to press Alt and Itch at the same time. Okay. All right, and now
Excuse me, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm the oldest person in this group by far, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
So
I don't know what the word chat box means.
okay, can you see the box that's hovering in my screen?
The box that's hovering in your screen.
Yeah. If not,
I see some writing.
Okay.
I
That's
don't
okay.
even know what that means. What does
I-
a box that is hovering mean? What does that mean?
It just means it's on my screen and it's moving, but that's okay. I'm going to put you into
There's
a
nothing
breakout.
moving.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So I'm going to put you into a breakout room, and then someone will be able to screen share the scenarios with you. And I'll jump into your room, so
Okay.
don't worry. Mhm.
I wrote them down, so I'm fine.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Then you don't need it then. Mhm.
Okay. A good point. Is it okay or white supremacy? My international students said they were so confused. They thought that meant okay. They didn't realize that it was an ugly thing.
Yeah.
Right.
That is something we need to know. I'm wondering if it falls, I guess it's cultural literacy.
Yeah, communication skills.
Yeah, okay. Should we move down one?
Okay.
Has everybody said everything they need to say for number one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Names of
That Les Paul hanging behind you, but I guess this isn't the time.
Yeah. Hey, Robert.
Hey, is everything going okay? Just wanted to check in with you guys.
Yeah, no tech problems.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we just actually got through pretty much
The first one.
item number one, and you know, there's sort of the low expense path, and then there's the high expense path, and we were sort of thinking more on the low expense with using sort of online resources, Google Translate, you know, maybe pick up a Lonely Planet to get those initial you know, statements and questions, very basic needs around help, money, food, that kind of thing.
Great. Great.
I think a lot of that would also apply to the other two scenarios too, although the child having to talk to teachers I know is a problem because I'm a teacher and I've had this scenario from the other side, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Marianne, can you talk a little bit more about what type of communication needs that parents might need during a parent-teacher conference?
Oh gosh, it's really tough. You know, at my school, we have a few people on staff who speak Spanish, but the languages are so diverse that, you know, you have to wait for translations and hope for translators that you can get in on the meetings and things like that. It's very challenging. You know, parents are they feel really disconnected. You know, it's really hard to get them feeling like they're on board with what their child is doing, and they are often feel insecure about the whole thing and just stand there and nod and act like they understand a lot of times. It's tough. It really is.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, but I have to imagine too. I mean, you know, I think you're absolutely right, and that could actually limit the amount of learning a child could accomplish if they are experiencing a high amount of or a severe lack of confidence. I think as a, just in sort of this idea of helping, if you're in Turkey for business and you're working with colleagues that speak English, that might be an untapped resource for your child, in that you could ask your colleagues if they have people that they know that could kind of help in teaching this child how to speak the language. Maybe their own children, or maybe they could actually sort of volunteer some time, or kind of point them in the right direction. I think the nice thing is we have this adult in an environment with other adults that are more than capable in helping this child, by opening up different opportunities and that kind of thing. I think I would probably, as an adult with a young child in a foreign country, I think if I'm communicating with people and engaging with people all day, every day, those are the people I would probably start with and go with first to try to get help for the child.
Yeah, I actually had a friend who moved to Turkey with her husband for a couple of years, and she taught English as a second language to people in Turkey, which was really interesting. When she came back, she was fluent in Turkish. But I know with kids, part of the thing is you have to encourage the parents to speak to them in their native language and read with them in their native language, that you don't want to give them the idea that at home it all has to be in English, because that stops the communication. And a lot really depends on the literacy level of the parents from in their native language too. So there are just so many variables. And Robert was talking about that a little bit earlier. A lot going on there.
I'm going to pop into the other room. Thanks for letting me pop in.
Sure. I was also going to say that
But they look like ours, but there's a bunch with like umlauts and accents and such.
Huh.
Ideas. Anyway, we're getting off track.
So but I guess for a parent, you want to know how much they're immersed in the language versus how much English they can get throughout the day. But
That's a good point.
like, are all of the classes not, like, is math class in the native language, or social studies, history, things like that? But I guess as a parent,
go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
you just want to be able to communicate with the school.
Yeah, of the three scenarios here, number 3 feels the most important and the most weighted. Number 2, so your colleagues don't get you, they're going to have to be patient, and vice versa until you figure it out. But school's not going to stop and wait for you to learn English or Turkish, excuse me. So, and it's your child. So I don't know, if I had a learner who were in the scenario number 3, I can see that their needs would be high.
And I think you'd have to be just very positive with that student and congratulate them on everything they were learning, and let it be sort of a learning teaching thing. You know what I mean? Because as they learn and they pick it up, they're going to teach you. As somebody said, your kid's going to learn it faster than you are.
I wonder, I've never been in a breakout group before. Is he going to come back and get it? Oh, it says remaining 41 seconds.
Okay, there we are. We just did it right.
Look at us.
Look at us.
Do we exit, or it'll happen automatically?
I think he'll come get us. He didn't give us any instructions, so let's wait and see what happens.
There's actually going to be a notification that pops up.
You're listening to us.
Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Just wanted to see if you guys needed any help. That's all.
I was gonna say, I see you in the corner over there.
Hiding in the corner.
So wait,
That's a notification.
Okay.
I have
Can we
a little,
leave now?
Robert, may I ask a question? I don't know.
Yes, Daryl. Sorry, I was muted.
I thought you mentioned that this is going to be the platform in which we'll be given tutoring sessions, or no?
Yeah, so Zoom is a platform that you can use. Some of our tutors actually have been FaceTiming their learners.
All right.
But Zoom
It'll be
is
beneficial to learn with them.
Zoom is kind of the main one that we've been using so far. So yeah, it'll be helpful to kind of mess around with Zoom.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, so let's kind of reconvene and talk a little bit about what you guys discussed in your small groups. I'm not really sure what the protocol is for name calling, so I would say if you just raise your hand, I'll call on you if you would like to volunteer. So can someone talk a little bit about what you discussed in your group for number 1? Anybody want to? Any volunteers here? Morgan?
I'll go. Yeah. So one thing that we talked about was, going to Turkey for a month-long vacation. Sounds wonderful right now. There's a couple of routes you can go. There's a lot of money you could spend, or you could do it without spending a whole lot of money. There's a lot of online resources that might be free, like Google Translate. And then even just picking up like a Lonely Planet travel guide, you can find basic language sentences, statements, questions in those reference materials as well. So a lot of it would be, if you don't know the language at all, I would imagine in my situation, if I imagine this happening, I would probably want to focus on some of the more immediate basics, like my name and my like where I'm staying, things about money, things about safety, bathroom, help, that kind of thing. So some of those basic ones would be something I would want to get across as quickly as easily. I think that would make it easier for me to continue learning. But right out of the gates, wanting to know those immediate basics would benefit me.
Great, thanks a lot for sharing. I really like that you mentioned learning about the basics in terms of like going to the bathroom and communicating about accommodation. But there was another thing that I really liked that you guys mentioned was the resources. You mentioned Google Translate and Lonely Planet. So as tutors, as educators, that's one of the other things that we also have to be able to identify for our learners are the resources that are available for them, because oftentimes they might not even know about those resources. So great, thanks for sharing. Eileen, you raised your hand.
We talked about food too, and how important it is. You got to eat every day. You want to know how to learn basic terms so that you can order food and you can nourish yourself. And money, I always find money is difficult whenever I have to speak another language. I find numbers difficult in general. And to get the basic numbers so at least you have a clue what's going on. And we found out too that the Turkish alphabet has 28 characters. Did somebody say, is it 28 letters? Somebody looked that up. So just understanding how their alphabet differs, it's probably a good idea, so you can figure out where you need to, where you can read it more directly as if it were English and where you can't. I don't know the answer to that.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. So let's look at our second scenario. So this is, you got a new job with a healthcare company based in Turkey, and some of your colleagues don't understand English. What might be the immediate language learning needs and goals for this person? Beth?
We were talking in our group about which pieces of literacy would be most important in each scenario, and in this one we agreed that you'd both need to learn to speak to your colleagues as well as read what they write and write to them so they'd understand. So I don't know that we came to a consensus on which of those is most important, but it's definitely a multi-pronged, you'd need a multi-pronged approach here.
Great, great. Yeah, so I really like that you said that they would have to be able to read what they write to you and be able to understand that. So, you know, as a professional, the language that you'll be using in Turkey in a healthcare company setting would obviously be different than everyday Turkish, conversational Turkish. So this would definitely be a much more formal language that you will be learning about, right? We know that when we write emails to our colleagues, that looks very different from writing text messages to friends. And then the last one, I saw a lot of you guys discussing about this last scenario. Would somebody like to share with us? Marianne, sorry for calling you out, but you mentioned that you are a teacher. So would you mind sharing with us some of your thoughts about this from a teaching perspective?
There were a lot of things that came up in our group, and one of the people said that maybe you could get help from your colleagues at work, and I thought that was a good suggestion. And people's kids to help with that. My main knowledge about this is the ESL kids that I've had in my classrooms over the years, and how people try to support kids at school, but you'd also need that support at home. So, you know, that is another thing. But if you're working there, at least you'd know some people. I guess that would be one place to start for help. I do know there are a lot of classes and things in Turkey where you can learn to speak English and Turkish, because I had a friend who did exactly that. But otherwise, I got nothing.
Great, thanks for sharing. Eileen?
I was thinking, and we talked about this in our group, if I had to try to teach my child a language I didn't know, the first thing I do was either get someone to make up or purchase a set of English to Turkish flashcards. And I would start using them for common words and then graduate to common phrases. Because then you could help your child, because as you were teaching that child and working with the child, you'd be learning. And you could have the English and you could talk about it and then see how many that child remembered. And then the child could do it with you, so that you'd be encouraging each other, so that, you know, the child would learn better when the child got better than you and knew it. Everybody said the child would be better than you in no time, and I agree with that. It wouldn't take long.
Great, thank you. Any final thoughts about these scenarios? Okay, great. So the purpose of this scenario activity was to kind of illustrate all the different reasons why people might be learning a language. When we talk about a language, we often refer to it as a single entity to be mastered. Usually people think about that as a linear progression. You start with step 1 and then step 2 and then step 3 and then step 4 and then step 5. And eventually you reach the apex of the language and somehow you kind of can speak all domains of this language. In these different scenarios, we can see that a language contains multiple domains. And people speak languages for many different reasons, right? I might be able to speak to you all on the Zoom meeting, but I might not be able to speak the language that a computer software engineer speaks, right? And I know a lot of us who kind of just started working from home, started using Zoom, also had to learn the language of Zoom, right? Eileen asked, "What is a chat box?" Sorry for putting you out there.
No, that's okay. And I horrify you by telling you that I had to teach for 2 months on Zoom. I also teach at the graduate level, and I had to do that. And I managed it. My students were a great help, but I don't know the language of computers, and they know that. So they were a great help to me.
Yeah, but it shows you that even though we like to think of ourselves as proficient in our own language, there are many domains where we can't speak in English and communicate in English. So that's just to kind of get us to remember that our learners learn for a variety of reasons, and the best way to serve a language learner is to find out what is their immediate reason for learning that language. And this all goes back to a student-centered learning teaching approach, right? We always want to be mindful of who our students are and why they're learning. When we talk about student-centered learning, oftentimes we think of it in terms of a classroom setting, right? As you can see in this image here of these paper clips and this, I don't remember what these things are called, the big binder clips. We tend to think of this as, on the left, this is a student-centered approach. On the right is a teacher-centered approach, right? So the teacher is at the head of the classroom, and then all of the students are kind of uniform. They're all neatly placed in rows and columns. But it doesn't have to look this way, right? The setting of a classroom does not necessarily illustrate the teaching style of the teacher. Just like in a Zoom tutoring scenario, you can do a Zoom tutoring session and be teacher-centered, but you can also do it student-centered. What really makes something student-centered are the principles behind what the tutor or the educator is doing, right? So in a teaching-centered learning environment, the teacher believes that all of the knowledge about the language and all of the experiences about the language are from the teacher, and then that gets filtered through, and eventually the teacher passes on that knowledge and experience to their learners. Whereas in a student-centered learning environment, all of those things are shared. The teacher is constantly getting feedback from the learner, taking into account their own lived experiences, who they are as people, especially as adults. Adults have very hardened identities, right? They've had a myriad of experiences that they can draw from. And then as a teacher, your job is to bring that into the classroom to make your teaching as relevant to your students as possible, right? If you're teaching adults, you wouldn't bring in, I don't know, say like Dora the Explorer or Sesame Street as teaching materials. That would just be humiliating, right? So really what's at the core of a teacher-centered or learning-centered environment are these ideas about teaching. And I have some highlighted for us. So you can kind of go through them, but I'll mention just a few that I've highlighted. In a teacher-centered learning environment, the instructor talks and the students just listen. Whereas in a learner-centered one, the instructor is modeling the language, and then the student is interacting with the instructor and with one another. So the student is also practicing the language. And then again, in a teacher-centered learning environment, the instructor constantly monitors and corrects every utterance of the student. Whereas in a learner-centered one, students are talking to each other without constant instructor monitoring them. The instructor only provides feedback when questions arise or when absolutely necessary. So if students are kind of detracting from the goals of the class, the objectives that day. But why is a student-centered learning environment especially important for ESL learners? Why? Anybody like to share their thoughts?
Is it so that you can help them practice? Because they need more practice, I guess more guided practice, because otherwise they would have to practice in the real world and it could not really give them back what they need as a learner.
Great. That is so important. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, Daryl. Language learning requires practice, a lot of practice, right? That's how we learn languages, is by talking, by speaking, by reading, by writing. Constant, continual practice. It's not like in a university lecture setting, let's say if you were learning biology, you can just listen to your teacher, give you lecture notes, and then you can eventually read them at home and study them by yourself. To learn a language, you really have to be able to use the language and constantly practice that language. That's the only way to learn it. So that's why a student-centered learning environment is especially important for language learners.
Also, maybe because their experiences and their knowledge levels are so different that you really have to understand where they are to know where they want to be and how to help them get there.
Great. Great. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I mean, I would just say I think everybody learns in a different way. And if you can kind of find out how your learner learns best, then you're kind of accommodating that person's approach to learning more than your own approach. So if your approach is basically just, sight and sounds, but they learn phonetically, well, then they're not going to learn as quickly as if you were to adapt to the way that they learn most efficiently. So maybe just, maybe kind of having things student-centered might be just kind of thinking about how they most effectively and quickly learn and leveraging those tools and resources, perhaps.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. Sounds like we are a group of educators. Okay. So in our next activity, what I want us to do is just take a few minutes and write down your thoughts about your mission statement. It doesn't have to be lengthy, really just a paragraph will do. And the purpose, again, for this activity is so that we can try uploading our statement into our Google Classroom later, just so that we are all able to turn in our assignments on Google Classroom. So I'm actually going to set up a timer for 10 minutes, and you can write down a paragraph in response to these two questions. The first one is, how will you find out your students' needs? And the second one is, what can you do to foster a student-centered learning environment? Feel free to borrow from what others have mentioned during our Zoom meeting today. And then also, if you need to take a quick break, feel free to take a quick break during this time. Okay, welcome back. I didn't want to play the egg timer because it's really annoying, so I closed it. So hopefully you had your mission statement written out. Again, it doesn't have to be extensive. We're just going to copy and paste this and then submit it as our first assignment, so everyone has a chance to see how that works. Before we do that, I want to go over a few things about the role of a volunteer tutor at the Delaware County Literacy Council. You don't have to copy this down. I will send you a handbook for all tutors that we send. And these slides will also be available in our Google Classroom, so no need to write it down. So normally when we do have live meetings, we ask volunteers to schedule their own meeting times and locations with learners. If you want to do it virtually, totally fine. We will have to find you learners that are also willing to do it virtually, but that's totally fine, especially during these times. And we ask that you have a lesson that's based off of language learning objectives for your learners. So just do a little bit of preparation before each meeting to make sure that there's a focus, there's an objective for the learners. And then also to submit timesheets and then a brief description of what you guys worked on with the learner so that we can keep track of the learner's progress. And this is helpful because we do test our learners. We test them about every 6 months. It really depends on how long they've been meeting with their tutors or their teachers, just so that we get a sense of their progress. And then I think that's also helpful for tutors too, to see how they're progressing. In terms of our expectations of you, we ask tutors to commit to 6 months, just because once you start developing a relationship, a bond with your learner, it really helps keep them motivated to continue studying. And if a learner gets a tutor for 2 months and then they leave, and then another tutor for 2 months, it's really hard for the learner to really get adjusted to every 2 months to a new teacher, to a new instructor. So we just ask that you make some type of a time commitment with the learner. And again, we ask that you try to meet with them twice a week, an hour and a half per session. With Zoom, it doesn't have to be that long. I would say an hour would be okay, just so that they don't get screen fatigue. We ask that you can have professional conduct, and then also a commitment to constantly updating your knowledge and your skills as tutors and educators. In terms of what you can expect from us, we will be there to support you. If you ever need help lesson planning, please feel free to reach out to me. If you need help identifying resources, again, reach out to me, reach out to Karen, reach out to Jen, whose photo you saw earlier. We will also match you with a student. If you are someone in the area, we will try to match you with a student with a similar location preference as well. And then also, all of our students also complete an orientation, so they also understand that they have to act professionally as well. If they stop meeting with you, please let us know. We give them 3 chances, and then if they continue to be absent during your meetings, then we ask them to leave the program because again, we have a long wait list of learners. So if someone's not meeting with you, we can find someone else. And then in terms of our volunteers, these are the characteristics of successful volunteers. They are patient, they're culturally sensitive, and then they're willing to learn, right? As educators, we should always be willing to learn. Somebody just raised their hand, I saw. Yes, Beth?
Hi, I just had a question. Will all of the learners be here voluntarily? They want to be here? They've chosen this program, or are some being required to take tutoring?
Great question. So I would say 98, I don't want to say 99, but 98, 99% of ESL learners have voluntarily chosen to be in the program. We have ABE learners who have been ordered by a judge sometimes to serve to attend one of our programs, but this would just be for ESL tutoring. If you want to work with ABE learners, there are both ABE learners who are voluntarily attending the programs, and then some who are also being ordered to attend the programs. So great question. Okay. So moving on to our Google Classroom modules. So I tried to send out an invitation to everyone's email this morning. This is the email that you signed up with. So some of you don't have Gmails, but that's okay. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. But the first step is to access it, you will have to go to classroom.google.com. One way to do so is to enter in this class code. But for those of you who I emailed this morning, you can check your email. So I'll show you what that looks like. So you should have gotten an email from Google Classroom with my name in it. And then you'll see a photo of me and my cat, and then just click join. Once you click join, this will pop up for you, right? So this is the link itself. And it always pops up on this page, the stream page. And in the stream page, the most helpful thing really is to see the assignments that are due next. So again, on the very left, you'll see there's an upcoming assignment, 3 p.m. mission statement. And then you'll see some of the other assignments that are due soon as well. If you just click view all, you can see these other assignments. Another way to actually access the modules, and I actually prefer it this way, is if you click on classwork. And this is the reason why I prefer it this way, is because I've actually ordered all of the assignments and modules in a linear fashion so that you can go from top to bottom, and that actually will make the most sense for you, because you don't want to do the quiz and the reflection activity before going over these slides. So you always want to start from the very top and then work your way to the bottom. You will see that there are two different colors. One is gray, and then one is this purple color. So everything that is gray is just for you to review. You don't actually have to submit anything here.
I'm sorry, I can't get into any of this. I may be over my head here. It just keeps asking me for passwords. I don't know what it's talking about. It asks, I can't get into any of it. I don't want to hold anybody else up, but I can't even get in it. I don't have a Gmail account. Is that necessary?
Yeah, that might be necessary. Eileen, don't worry about it. I will help you out. If you can't get into it right now, I'll help you out.
Good, thank you. I don't want to hold anybody else up. I was just going to say, okay, I tried, but I'll wait.
No worries. It's not super difficult, so I'll help everybody out who needs help.
Wonderful. Thank you.
But right now, just bear with me real quick so that I can show you how to do the modules on your own time. So you'll see there's gray icons and then there's purple ones. So again, you want to go through all the gray ones first. So I'll click on one of the gray ones to show you what that looks like. So once you click on this module right here, you will see directions, and then you'll see slides. So what you want to do is you want to open up the slides. Okay, and you'll see most of these are pretty short. They're just a few pages. So what you want to do is just scroll through the different pages and read the material in the pages. There are a lot of videos, and then there are some short texts. And I try to keep it this way just so that you know, you don't have to read too much. I didn't want to overburden you guys. And this is basically a graduate education level module learning experience, whatever you have condensed into you know, a couple of slides and videos. I tried to find things that are still relevant. You'll notice that some of these videos are older, but they're still super relevant, still used in the field. So these are yeah, the videos and text that you'll see. And you'll also notice that a lot of them also have these explore further sections. So if you want to dive a little deeper, you can also go ahead and click on these links in the explore further sections. All right, and this is Stephen Crash, and he's a renowned language development expert. So once you go through those slides, right, and each one will have some short slides. At the very bottom, there will be reflection activities. This one is a quiz. If you click on the quiz, you open it, right, and then you know, just answer it and then submit it. But a lot of them will actually be these reflection prompts, and you'll see there's one right here. And basically, just write a paragraph response. You don't have to write more. If you feel like writing more, you're always welcome to. If you want to ask questions here, go ahead. I'll answer them as well. I will be monitoring this, so if you ever have any further questions, just put it down. Let me know. And you know, we want to be in dialogue with each other. Feel free to, you know, respond to other people's responses. I want to try to make this as communal feeling as possible to kind of replicate a classroom learning experience. So these are the ones that you'll be able to see now. By Monday, you'll be able to see the rest, and I'm actually going to show you what that looks like. Okay, by Monday, you'll be able to see the rest. This is my view from the teacher's view. So I have all the modules up here. It might look like a lot, but it really isn't. Again, you just have to respond to the ones here with the question marks. And again, you just have to write a paragraph for each of these. So you'll be able to do it. You'll have 2 weeks to complete them. If you need more time, feel free to let me know. As long as you do like 1 or 2 a day, you should be able to get it done in no time. All right. So now I want us to actually try and submit your mission statements. If you didn't type it out onto a Microsoft Word document, just type something in for now as a placeholder, just so that I know that you're able to do it. So in order to submit your mission statement,
I think I'm out of here because I can't see any of this at all. And so I can't understand it. I can't see it. It's all so faint and so small, I'm not able to see it. Anybody else have that problem or is it just me?
I'm doing okay. I'm struggling a little bit, but
I can't see it at all.
Eileen, are you using a computer?
Sure. Uh-huh. I am.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to zoom in a little bit. Does it look bigger now?
I mean, it's like trying to see the smallest line when you're having an eye exam. If I squint, I can kind of see it, but I feel like I'm holding everybody up. I didn't really sign up for this. None of us did. We want to do it in person, of course. We would love to do that. But I'm so frustrated right now. I can't, you know, I'm almost 70 years old and I've learned basics on a computer. I do love to teach and I've been teaching for more than a decade with great success, but I'm afraid I don't know that I can master this. My husband says he'll help me, but I can't even ask him what to help me with because I can't even get into it.
I hear you. I had to back out of a couple things for the same reason. I'm getting better, but I hear you.
Yeah,
why don't you bear with us just for now? And then again, I'll be available to support you. So if you want to meet again later, you know, this week, next week, I'll be there to support you. So why don't you just
say, you know, I had to learn how to do all of this when the schools closed, and it was like a huge big deal to me to teach this way rather than in a classroom, but it didn't take that long to really catch on to it. Please don't get discouraged. You'll figure it out. It's not that hard, really. I'm almost 72 and I got
there
it.
You go. So, we're in the same good.
Yeah, so you'll get it. It's not that hard.
Yeah. If you can't see it, it makes it doubly hard to get it. I'm not even able to see this or read it. And I've tried. I put my reading glasses on. I still can't see it.
So Eileen, once you log into this website by yourself and not through my Zoom screen, it should actually look bigger for you. Right now it might look small because you're seeing it through my Zoom screen, but later it might be easier to see. And then there are also other ways to access it. If you have a smartphone, you can also download the Google Classroom app, and it might look bigger there. But just bear with us for now.
Sure. I don't want to interrupt you. That's why I was just going to sign off, but I sure will.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, we'll just practice submitting our mission statements. Again, if you log into your email address, you might have seen this sent out to you today. So please join our Google Classroom if you received that. If you didn't receive it, that's okay. Just go to Google Classroom. So that's.
Sorry, I had a quick question too. So does it have to be a Gmail, or could it be like it has to be a Gmail email account? It can't be anything else.
Sometimes it works if it's not a Gmail account, but if it is a Gmail account, it will definitely work.
Okay, but I'm saying, like, can I use another email to like access the classroom, or does it have to be Gmail?
So yeah, it might work if you use another email, but not always.
But as long as it works, I'm good.
Yeah. As long as you can access it, it's fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as you can access it, it's fine. So we already have some people that were able to sign into it. If you haven't signed into it, please sign into it now. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Sorry, I'm going to go back to the original slides. All right, so to access the classroom, please go to this website, classroom.google.com, and then type this in as the code. I'm gonna put the code in our chat box. Okay. If you weren't sure how to put in the code, once you go to Google Classroom, at the very top right, you'll see a plus sign, and it'll say create or join a class. And then click on it, and you'll see join a class. And that's where you enter the code. So once you enter the code, click join. And then our class, our Google Classroom should pop up. So far I have these people logged in. So Sadef, I did invite you using your Hotmail. So you should be able to log in through your Hotmail. Morgan, I also invited you through your Gmail.
I'm in, Robert. Do you see that I'm in, or do you see that I'm not in the classroom?
Let me
just out of curiosity.
Oh, I see you. Is that you right there? Morgan Rash.
Yes, that's me. Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Eileen, I invited you through your Comcast account. So you should be able to log in through your Comcast account.
Okay. I'll try. I'll give it another try. Sure.
If you check your Comcast email, you should see a link.
Okay. Not yet.
It was earlier this morning, maybe.
Oh, no, I have that. Is that the old one you mean? I thought you sent me a new one.
Yeah, that's the old one. So if you click on the link, you should be able to access it.
Oh, click on the link. Because all those little numbers are the link, right?
The link, let me see. It should look like this. It should say join.
Oh, yeah, that I did. All right. And then it says email or phone number. I just use my email, right?
Yep, your Comcast email. Let's see who else is in here. So Def, you're in. Me? Beth is in. Daryl is in. Marianne, you're in. Sarah, you're in as well. And Morgan, you're in.
Then it says enter your password. Is that the code you gave us?
No, that should be your password to your Comcast account.
Oh boy.
Okay, so I was in using my Gmail though. You said you invited me like via Hotmail, and I'm good, right? Because I submitted the mission statement too with my Gmail account though.
Yeah, that's fine. As long as you continue to use it through your Gmail account.
Now it says, oh well, try it again.
Okay.
Let me try again.
If you are in, please go to classwork and then go to mission statement. There are two ways to submit your mission statement. You can either submit it like this, like what Beth did, just type it into the class comments, or, sorry, I'm switching into the student view. So again, you can either submit it as a class comment, like what Beth did, or if you click add or create, and then you can actually submit it as a Google Doc. The benefit of doing it this way is that it automatically saves whatever you type into this doc. Okay, so once you have the doc, open the doc, and then you can type in your mission statement here. Okay. And then it actually automatically saves. So once you're done typing it in, it's automatically saved. But make sure you go back to the assignment and then click turn in. If you don't click turn in, I won't see that you've submitted anything. So don't forget, just click turn in. Okay. If you want to edit something that you submitted, you can always edit it. You can click unsubmit, go back to the doc, right? And then again, type in your edits here and it will revise itself. You can also do that in the comments. All of the comments can be edited. So don't worry if you haven't finished typing something up, or if you want to revise something, you can always edit and revise it later. And again, you know, these just require a paragraph long submission. I don't want to overburden you guys. So don't think that you have to turn in a paper each time you submit something.
Hey, Robert,
Yes.
just a quick question on submitting this. So it looks like I just added my mission statement as a class comment. So maybe I might have missed something. So do I add or create a Google Doc with my mission statement? And the reason why I ask is because as I click on mark as done, it says you didn't attach work for mission statement, so your teacher will just see it's done. So that leads me to believe that I should probably type this up in a Google Doc and attach the Google Doc.
Great.
Do you follow me?
Yes. Great question. So you don't have to. Okay. So this is perfectly fine. Submitting it as a class comment is perfectly fine.
Okay.
If you click turn it in, and even though it says, oh, you didn't attach anything as a Google Doc, it just tells me that you've submitted something.
Okay.
And that way I can see it. I can know that you've submitted something. So don't worry if it's not a Google Doc. You can totally just write it as a class comment.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
Great. So far we have Beth, Morgan, and Marianne. You've submitted class comments. Let's see if there's anybody else. Did anybody else submit anything yet? Just want to double check. I see Daryl submitted something, Sadef. Sarah also submitted something. So that shows me that you've submitted it. That's great. The other thing about class comments is that other people will be able to read it and see it, whereas with the Google Doc submissions, that's not always the case. Google Doc submissions are usually private. So. Great. So if you were able to submit it, we'll go over the final parts of the orientation slides. If you weren't able to submit it, hang in there after this webinar is over, and then we can continue troubleshooting, and I will guide you through the steps of submitting. So again, when you're going through the modules, always go from top to bottom. If you see this bookmark key icon that's in gray, here my screen is in pink, but for you it's in gray. That's just materials for review. If you're familiar with the materials, go as fast as you want or as slow as you want. If you see this clip icon, that requires some type of written submission. Again, a paragraph is perfectly fine. Don't feel like you have to overburden yourself. And then these ones with the question marks, again, also require some type of written response. For our next steps, you've already joined the Google Classroom. If you already did, then that's great. You don't have to do that anymore. Complete the modules online. You'll have 2 weeks to complete them, and then we'll reconvene, I believe, June 20th. And for that session, June 20th session, we'll talk a little bit about using Zoom. So if you have any questions about how to use Zoom to do tutoring, we'll discuss that. We'll also talk about Khan Academy. That'll actually be the bulk of what we'll talk about during that session, and how Khan Academy can be integrated into your tutoring practice. Khan Academy is great because you can assign work to your learners that they can do on their own time, and then you can also monitor what they're doing and track their progress. So I'll show you guys how to do that. And then finally, we'll do one activity. It's a lesson planning activity. Again, I'll put you in the breakout rooms, and you'll just make a very short lesson plan to kind of synthesize all the things that you will have learned in our Google Classroom. And I'll also upload an example lesson plan well before our next meeting, just so that you get a sense of what it'll look like. Okay. And thank you very much. That's it for our session. Again, if you haven't signed in, if you haven't submitted the mission statement, stick around, I'll help you out. So thank you so much. These are some photos of some of our tutors. And I'll always be there. If you need to reach out to me, email me. This is my job. This is what I do for a living. So don't feel like you are taking up my space or my time. You can also call me as well. And these slides will be available. So thank you so much. Have a safe weekend. And I will see you in our Google Classroom throughout the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you very much. And Eileen, hang in there. You'll get it.